I promised you another junk journal Q&A session, so here we are. And so that you have something a little bit more interesting to look at on your screen rather than just a static picture, I'm sharing working in this jeans junk journal. But before we go into the questions, let me explain a little bit about this journal so that you know what's going on here on the screen. So I started constructing this junk journal when I was in the Netherlands visiting my friend Maud. We had a couple of beautiful crafty days together with our other friend Bea from France, so that was a real treat. And I haven't really done much in it since then. I've added a few bits, but not a lot, so it's finally time to keep working on this and maybe even finish it. I'm not sure how far I'm going to get in this video. The digitals I used for this journal are my Woven Dreams backgrounds and ephemera kit. I will link those below in case you're interested in those. And the first thing I wanted to do was to add some more pages with more writing space, because I realized flipping through this that there's not a whole lot of journaling space in it, and that's something I wanted to definitely include. And since I don't usually like just blank coffee dyed papers, I wanted to add some interest on the back without adding so much that you can't write over it. So I wanted to keep the colors light so that there's just a little bit interest on the pages. And here you see me selecting some masks from my new, I don't know if it's temporary storage system for my stencils and masks. This is only the mask part. The stencils are actually on my door. They're hanging there, and if you missed that video, I had a whole video of reorganizing my stencils and the struggle of it. So if you're struggling with your stencils, maybe you want to watch that video. Not that I have brilliant solutions, but maybe you get some ideas from it, or maybe you can give me some tips, because obviously I'm still not in a place where I want to be with my masks and stencils. So I'm just going to use some Distress Oxide sprays, and I think the process is very self-explanatory. So going into the Q&A session, these are questions that you have left both on my community tab, where I had asked you to leave your questions a while back, and also from my video of a year of planning. I will link that video for you below as well, where I had one session already of your Q&As. Those were mostly related to my planners, but in this video I want to also tackle some of the more general junk journal questions, and some of yours are not so easy to answer, I have to say, but I'll just do the best I can. So let's start off with a German one from dear Sabrina. So I will first read it in German and then I will translate to English. Liebe Barbara, was machst du, wenn du schon längere Zeit absolut keine Inspiration mehr findest fürs Junk Journal, obwohl du alles Mögliche versuchst an Videos und Bildern zu schauen? Ich habe so Lust auf Basteln, aber mir fehlt seit längerem das Gefühl, richtig Spaß dran zu haben. Kannst du mir Tipps geben, wie das wieder besser wird? So, in English. Dear Barbara, what do you do when you haven't found any inspiration for your junk journal for a long time, even though you try everything you can to look at videos and pictures? I really want to do crafts, but I've been missing the feeling of really having fun with it for a long time. Can you give me tips on how to get better? Dear Sabrina, I feel you, because I have been in a similar situation for a while. And this is not easy, because I think everybody's going to be different in this. But I can tell you what works for me. Maybe it will work for you. When I am in a creative funk, or I don't have the mojo and I'm not inspired, what does not help me is exactly what you have pointed out also in your question, is watching videos and looking at pictures. For me, the only thing that works is to sit down at my craft desk, even though I might not feel inspired, and take out some supplies and start just touching it, maybe reorganizing it a bit, looking at it without any pressure that I have to create something. So just having materials in your hand, that usually will kind of at least give me a little bit of interest to do something with them, even if I don't know what. Something I have found that helps me is to do something very low key and easy. So for example, in a recent video, I was working in my little art journal that I hadn't touched in months, which was my uncut number 6 video. I will link that for you below as well, where I had no specific plans on what to add to it. I was bored with the materials I had been using in this journal previously. So I just took what was on my desk and started gluing things down. And what usually happens for me is as I start playing with the things, new ideas come. For me, new ideas do not come by just looking at other things. I need to actually sit down and play with my stuff. Another thing you could try is maybe just making some clusters that you could use in future projects, or make a snippet roll, whether that be out of paper or out of fabric. Just some very small pieces that will maybe spark interest to create a new journal or to create a page in an existing journal. So I wouldn't put any pressure on yourself, but at the same time, I know from my own experience, sitting on my couch and just wishing that the mojo would come does not help me. It doesn't work. So go to your craft desk, whatever craft area you have, take out materials and play with them. Either you have a journal where you can just glue bits and pieces onto. Maybe you can make a collage with something you have around you, or make something small. I don't know, maybe just embellish little tags, or maybe just fussy cut some images. Maybe they will inspire you to put them onto a cluster, or you make hidden paper clips, or something that you can add to a journal later. Maybe just flipping through your old journals could inspire you as well. That sometimes helps me. So I go through some journals and I get some ideas of things that I haven't actually tried in a long time, things I have forgotten about, and I'm inspired to try them in my current style, because of course my style has changed over the years. I don't know how long you've been crafting, but maybe that's something that you could go back to if you have journals to go through. So next I have a question from dear Angela. When you're putting together a new journal, do you sew, stencil, grunge up your pages and anything else you might want in your journal, pre-decorations being done, then sew in the signatures? I know sewing around the edges would be easier done beforehand. So actually the journal you're watching me make right now is a good example of what I tend to do. So yes, I will usually put together the signatures as much as I can without sewing them in first, just because of course it's a lot easier to work on single pages than to work on them when they're already sewn in the journal. But I find that I can only do that usually to a certain extent. So for this one as well, you will see that I will sew in the signatures, and once they're all in, I will then leaf through the journal and make decisions on where I still need to add bits and pieces. And sometimes this really bites me in the butt, because I realize that I want to add some, I don't know, whether it be embossing or stamping or whatever, which is of course much harder to do because you don't have a flat surface anymore. If you decide to emboss later, you have the embossing powder all over your journal. So it makes things a lot more difficult. Of course, the sewing you have to do beforehand if you're going to sew around your journal pages. Obviously, if you're just going to sew ephemera, you can just do that and then glue it into your journal, making it look like it's sewn in. But usually I don't like to sew in my ephemera anyway, because I do not like the stitching usually showing on the back side of the journal page. But I do get a much better feeling of how the pages are working together and playing off each other once they are actually sewn into the journal. I'm not sure why that makes such a big difference, because of course you can just leaf through the pages without them being sewn in, but somehow it makes a difference for me and I can't really explain it. Yeah. So the next question is from Janice. Barbara, I'm curious about how many pages you decide to put in journals. All are different. What is your criteria? That's a really good question, and one that is very hard to answer. Because my answer is sort of like the answer my mother used to give me, which very much annoyed me. When I asked her, when we were cooking something together, and I asked her, well, how much of this and this do you put in? And she would say, like, you just feel it. I hated that answer, because when you're a beginner, you don't feel it, so you need measurements. So I'm assuming that my answer here is maybe going to annoy you just as much, but I can also only give you an answer kind of like that, because each journal is individual. And as you will see me, if you continue watching this video, I currently have 3 signatures for this journal. And when I then held them in my hands, first of all, I saw that they were distributed very unevenly. So the middle signature was a lot thicker than the outer 2 signatures. So I ended up splitting those signatures up into 4 signatures. And I then added also a couple more pages until it felt right in my hands when I kind of squished them together and put them in the cover. Of course, you also have to consider how much do I still plan on embellishing once all the pages are sewn in. So if I know I'm going to be adding a lot of bulky embellishments afterwards, or stuffing a lot of memorabilia inside, I need to leave more room, meaning I either need to make a bigger spine, or I need to have less pages so that my journal won't become a gator mouth in the end. If that's something you enjoy, then please go ahead, but it's not what I like, so I try to prevent that. So obviously you will get this feeling with experience. The more journals you make, the more you will know what you like. I don't like my journals being too thin, but at the same time I don't like them being huge, because they get so difficult to handle if they have so many pages, and it becomes really difficult to write in them or to add any kind of art into them. So I have kind of like a, I would say, medium amount of pages. But to give you a concrete example, for this journal that you see me making right here, I will end up having 4 signatures. My signatures usually have a similar amount of pages, but for this journal, because the amount of bulk I added to the signatures was so individual for each signature, I have the first signature with 7 pages, the second with 4 pages only, the third with 6 pages, and the fourth with 8 pages. But once they're all put together in the journal and sewn in, it does give a very harmonious look, and you won't actually see that the signatures have so many different page numbers in them. I really hope that makes sense, and I hope that you trust that with time you will get a better feeling of it. The more journals you will make, the quicker you will get that feeling. And I think you can only learn this by making lots of journals, and you will learn what you like and dislike, because obviously everybody's going to be different as well. Some crafters really enjoy the thin journals, some love the big chunky journals. So it's really hard to give you a recipe, but this is usually what I do. I don't have a set number that I start out with. Maybe you could say there's a minimum number of pages I would put in the signature, which might be 4, which really isn't a lot, but again, adding a lot of bulk will make that signature very substantial very quickly. The next question I have is from Shiny Bree Silver. I love this Q&A. It was so much fun to get to learn more about you and your creative process. Thank you. Here is a question for a future video. I enjoy making journals and made quite a few of them. I also have several ideas and am inspired by folks like you about how to use them. But when it comes to it, I struggle to start. I end up with several journals, lots of ideas in my head, but nothing really ends up in the journals. I struggle with this. It is like a blockage. Have you ever felt this way? Any ideas of how to overcome it? Thank you so much for this question, Shiny Bree, because I think many of us can relate to this question. I know I certainly can. And I want to start off by saying that I don't think it's a bad thing to enjoy making the journals and then just leaving them as they are. There is no rule that says once you make a journal, you actually have to work in them. Actually, I have never worked in most of my journals. I really enjoy the process of making the journal, of embellishing it to a certain extent, and usually that's it. Currently, the only journal I actually work in is my junk journal planner. This is like a catch for all for me, and if you'd like to know more about this kind of junk journal planner, please go see my recent video that is linked below. It's like a year of junk journal planning or something like that. So that is where, interestingly, I feel the most inspired to work in, probably because it doesn't have a single theme from beginning to end. Each signature has its individual theme. Each signature will have very different embellishments. I add to it things from my daily life. I add sometimes photos, memories of things. I add some journaling from experiences I've had. I will add ephemera like tickets or other pieces of paper that I have gotten from different activities. So this for me is a journal where I don't feel any blockage. But with other journals that I've made that have a specific theme, I have that as well. And I actually cannot explain why this is. But when I buy a journal from somebody else or I receive one as a gift, then I'm able to work in it. And I don't know why that is. If anyone else knows this feeling and can explain why this is, that would be super interesting. I know this helps for me. Maybe this is something you want to try. Go on Etsy maybe and find a journal you like and purchase it. See if you like working in that. But for me, I don't know what the difference is. But when I buy a journal specifically to create in, then I have a whole different mindset than if I have actually made the journal myself with a specific theme. Maybe it's because somehow I feel like I'm changing the style of the journal by working in it, because I probably wouldn't only write in it. I would also want to add embellishments, but in my head I'm done creating it. You know what I mean? It's hard to explain. When I finish creating a journal, I'm done with it. You know what I mean? Like in my head, it's like, okay, this journal is finished. Although it has all this space to journal and to add more embellishments, but for me, it's done. But if I buy a journal, I have the feeling it's like a canvas that has some interest already on it where I can add to. And it's just a totally different mindset. I don't know if this is helpful at all, but this is my personal experience. Next, I have a question from Nancy. Barbara, I love watching you work. I'm Nancy from Texas, USA. I'm making a junk journal using Claudia Nice's How to Keep a Sketchbook Journal as the pages of my book. I love her work. I'll have 8 signatures and want to use elastic to hold my signatures. I'd really like to have a soft spine using fabric, but not covering the beautiful cover of the book. How do I make the spine without making the book look boxy? Thank you. I forgot to say my junk journal spine is about 3 inches wide, so that is quite substantial. I do not know Claudia Nice's channel, so I'm not sure what this whole book looks like. I also don't know what your covers look like or what they are made out of. When you say you want to make a soft spine junk journal, I'm assuming that you have hard covers. One thing I'd like to mention, I'm personally not a fan of the elastics, but I do understand the advantages of them because you can easily remove pages and to work on them. So that totally makes sense. My personal experience with elastic is that they lose their elasticity with time, and then I end up having to sew in my signatures a few years down the road. But of course, there is different quality of elastic. If you're someone that enjoys using elastics for your signatures and you want them to stay elastic for years and years to come, please make sure that you buy elastic that is super durable. I wish I could give you a link, but I can't. But I know there are huge differences in elastic. If you buy the cheap elastics, you will run into the problem of them losing their elasticity and you will not enjoy your journal in the future. So that's one thing to pay attention to. And also, putting elastics on a fabric spine is tricky in itself because fabric obviously is soft. And when you have an elastic that obviously needs some tension, you need to put the fabric onto something to make it sturdy enough to hold those elastics without crunching up. So first of all, my tip would be to add your fabric onto something maybe like canvas so that you still have the soft spine feeling, but at the same time it still has some sturdiness to it. Your point is that you don't want to cover the beautiful cover of your book. I have 2 videos, which were both design team projects, where I use soft spines with hard covers. I will link both of those for you below. So that would give you 2 different options of attaching the soft fabric spine to your covers without impacting the cover at all. So I hope that's going to help you. I have a question from Hilltop View Journals. Hi Barbara, thanks for this opportunity to pick your brains. I'd like to know how you stay interested in the theme or style of your current planner. I find that by the time I finished making a journal for my daily planning, I've gone off it and want to start another one. It's a recurring problem and I wonder if you have a similar issue. I totally get what you're saying, and this kind of also goes back to the other question I answered earlier concerning not wanting to work in my own journals, because by the time I've made it, I'm done with the theme and I'm not inspired to work in it. So again, this is why I love my junk journal planners, because every month has a new theme. And that's what keeps me interested. That's what keeps me motivated and inspired to work in it, because I always enjoy having a new theme. And at the end of the month, I always look forward to having a new theme to play with, which will then inspire new types of ephemera, new types of embellishments I want to add, new materials I want to add for that particular theme. So I don't know how you make your daily planners, but if you make a daily planner for like a whole year and you have one theme, yeah, that wouldn't work for me either, unless it is so neutral and simple that it doesn't have a lot in it where I can add anything I want. It wouldn't be for me. But if I'm going to add lots of images like I do in my planners, the only way to keep me inspired is to switch up the themes. So if you're able to do that, again, I don't know how you organize your daily planning, but again, I would also say please check out my A Year of Planning video linked below to see how I work with my planners. Maybe that is something that would work better for you. So that's all of the questions for today. I would like to go back to talking a little bit about what is happening here on the screen. So I have, in the meantime, divided my journal into the 4 signatures instead of the 3 that I originally had. And I made a separate spine because I'm going to use this as a hidden spine to sew in my signatures, because I did not want to cover up the spine of the denim cover that I had made. And I'm also using this same spine as a template to punch in the holes for my signatures. So once I've done that, I am choosing an embroidery thread and I go for this blue, which I think goes really well with the blue of the denim. I take 3 lengths of the height of my journal, which actually turned out to be too much. I think 2.5 would have been plenty. So obviously I'm cutting 4 strands, one for each signature, and then I'm going to start sewing on my signatures to this separate spine that I made. Starting from the inside bottom hole, going through to the outside and weaving my way up, and then going back down through those same holes and tying the 2 ends off on the bottom. So at this point I have all 4 signatures sewn in, and you can see here how much more evenly they are distributed. So next I'm going to take my Collal bookbinding glue, which is very thick and holds extremely well, like I think most bookbinding glues. You don't have to use a bookbinding glue, but just use a glue that you know is very strong. So once I have my spine covered in the glue, and I'm not worried about the outer edges because I can do those later, I'm just going to set it into the cover, bending the cover so that I know that the spine is in the middle. And then I go ahead and burnish the spine down, first with my fingers and then with my bone folder, making sure to burnish down also all those parts in between the individual signatures, as well as all around the signatures. And finally I added some more glue where it didn't go all the way to the edge, and I wipe off any excess with my cloth, and then I let this dry. So it's the next day. Everything has dried beautifully, and I decided I want to add some more writing space. So I've added all of these here on top, so I just need to put them into the pockets and tuck spots. So I've used all of my leftover coffee dyed paper scraps. I sewed them together with a messy zigzag stitch on the top, and I added some fun stamping just to have a little bit of interest. So this one goes in here, and all the stamps that I've used for these little writing spots are from PM Artists Studio. They are the fun foam stamps like these, which I love dearly. There's this one as well, and I used this beautiful bee, and they're really bulky but they are super light. I love these. And there's this bug. I love him. I usually don't like bugs so much, but this guy is so cute. I think I'll call him Bob the Bug. I don't know. So I just need to add these into the journal, and this way you can also see a flip through. The tags are blank on the back, so there's more writing space there. Again, here, just some small papers for writing. These we made earlier. Here's another little pad that goes in this tuck spot. Here's another tag. So this is all the ephemera from the Woven Dreams kit. I made another little writing pad here, and I switched up the colors of the stamping. Oh no, this one is a bit big. I thought I'd check that. Okay, so I will fix that later and tear that a little bit smaller. Let's leave that sticking out. Yeah, here's the one with the bee. Love that one. And there's another partial bee there. Light enough to write over. And these book pages that you see here are beautiful pages from a Dutch book. Here's another tag from that ephemera kit. These are as well. This we made today. Very, very faint that you can see the dragonfly. I think you need a little bit of imagination for that one. Here we have the beautiful leaf. Kind of hard to see. Aren't these just gorgeous? So here we have a tag. And then there's this one. So adorable. And then these here, you saw me doing these in the video. Powder that I was sprinkling into my puddles was just instant coffee. And then I just spritzed some water to dissolve that. I just thought it gives a little more interest to the page. So here's another little pad. This one I know will fit in here. I love all these jeans tabs. We're on signature 2. This is a page that I created for Junk Journal January. You know, it's this yearly prompt challenge that Meg from Meg Journals creates every year. I was one of the participants and my prompt was torn edges. Really like how that turned out. And then we have this one. We have lots more writing space here. And we have this on the back that kind of looks like a reptile skin, doesn't it? It's just a stencil with some, what is it called? Texture paste. And these are some real leaves. So cute, these butterflies. And this is the last signature. So cute. This we did today. I like that I added this pink in some areas because that just added another color to the blues and the yellows that I have here mostly. Here's another tiny paper pad that will go in here. I also really like this paper bag handle. Here's a folded paper with Bob the Bug. So there's space here, and you could also journal on top of Bob. This one we also made today, another journaling card. And finally here, I added the other print of the leaf that we made today. Lots of space here on the back. And that goes in here. And this one I'm leaving empty. I love how you can see the raw inside of this paper bag. I usually don't do that. My instinct would be to cover it up, but I love this. I love that you can see what this cover is actually made out of and that it's recycled material. I originally had this closed with this strip of a jeans leg. It works, obviously, but I'm not so sure that I'm loving it because I can't tie it really well because it's kind of stiff. I mean, this is fine, but I thought I want to make it just a little more delicate and I want to mix the styles up a little bit more. So I'd rather add one of my Junk Journal jewelry strands, and I think this one fits so well with the colors it has. And the two end pieces are this cute dragonfly charm and this beautiful butterfly charm. And these buttons are super special. They are wooden and they are from Egypt. My hubby found these for me in Alexandria, along with some of the other beads that are from Egypt. Let me see which ones. Yeah, these stones he got from there. Oh, and these cute little shells. Look at these, they're so cute. So this will wrap around here. And then we can just tie it around like that. And I really think this fits well. And I think it changes the whole look of the cover. I mean, I like the jeans piece as well, but somehow I think this makes it more special. And yeah, I love the contrast of the more rugged denim and the delicate journal jewelry piece here. And I have decided, this is the first time ever I'm doing this, I'm going to put this in my shop. This is not an easy decision because each journal is unique. If you make journals which are not mass makes, if you make each journal individually like I do, you know how hard it is to give one of these away because they're like your babies, they're like a part of your soul. But I wanted to do this for such a long time, and I'm going to do it with this journal right here. So I will be adding this to my store in approximately a week. I'm not going to give you an exact date or time. If it's there, it's there. Have a look approximately a week from now. If you see it and you want to purchase it, please go ahead. I have a category called physical products. So if it's not there, and it will be probably at the top of all of my products anyway, if it's not there, then it has already sold. And for all of you who have missed out on getting these kind of journal closures, I have made more. I am making more. So please check my shop for these. I'm constantly adding new ones, and at the time of this video I should have a few in there as well. So if you can't get the journal, maybe you're interested in one of these closures. Editing Barbara here. Because you are so fabulous, I decided on a spontaneous sale for these junk journal closures. Please use this code you see on the screen right here for a 25% off any of my junk journal closures. You just have to add this code at the checkout. Happy shopping! As I mentioned earlier, the kit is linked below as well as my general shop link. Thank you for all your questions and for sticking with me to the end if you're still here. Love you guys.